Hi, I'm Caleb Jarreau, sports editor at the Daily Beacon, and beside me is Eric Woods, assistant sports editor, and we're at Nissan Stadium fresh off of Tennessee's win against Virginia to open the season. Eric, what did you see from the win today?
I mean, I saw a team who was definitely in their first game of the season. Joe Milton, he came out, first drive looked really solid, but I think after that deep pass to Ramel Keaton that he didn't quite connect on, I think that shot his confidence a little bit. It was a good throw, but it was just dropped. That happens, but I think the run game was able to kind of calm things down for him. Joe Milton's an emotional player, and sometimes it's a little tough for him to get back into the groove of things. I think that's something that we'll need to see a lot of jump from him this year, and so yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like Josh Heupel kind of hit on that a little bit in his post-game presser. He felt like those skill positions, those wide receivers, weren't really in the flow of the game in the first and second quarter. Like you said, kind of timing was off with Joe Milton, and that happened with Ramel Keaton and a couple other receivers as well that he was overthrowing, and it just felt like they weren't on the same page on some of those plays, and Josh Heupel saw that same thing. He also saw the same thing turn around at halftime once everybody kind of got settled in, got calmed down, and was kind of comfortable running the plays on the field after that. So you talked about the running game kind of carrying the load today. What did you see from the running game? Who kind of stood out?
I mean, it all started with Jalen Wright. It was 12 carries, 115 yards, I think it was. And I mean, he averaged nearly 10 yards a carry, which is no small feat, no matter who you're playing. And we saw some good things from Jabari Small, but Dylan Sampson was the one who kind of brought everything home. I mean, he had 4 touchdowns, 3 on the run, 3 on 3 from the first one was from Joe Milton to get this first score of the season. So I think there's a lot to be excited about. He's a sophomore. He's someone who Josh Heupel said was further along than anybody who was in the running back anybody in the running back position at that point in their career. So I think he's a very promising piece, but it all started with Jalen Wright for sure.
Yeah, and you talk about Jabari Small. He had those 3 touchdowns today. Or you talk about Dylan Sampson, had those 3 touchdowns today.
Dylan Sampson.
And he was the first one to he's the first running back to get 4 touchdowns in a game since John Kelly in the season opener in 2017. So that's not something you see every day. And he kind of talked about his presser as well, that Jalen Wright and Jabari Small got him into the red zone and that he was called upon to punch it in. And that was his role today, was to get those touchdowns. And he started the game with a 9-yard reception from Joe Milton, and that kind of got the ball rolling. And while the offense did start slow today, we saw a ton of good things from the defense and the defensive front. Kind of speak on that a little bit, and who kind of stood out in your eyes today?
Yeah, it's a little difficult because Virginia isn't the most advanced offenses out there. They only returned 3 starters, but it's obviously safe to say that it's a big improvement over last season. I think the main standout player was James Pierce in back-to-back. I think it was the first quarter, back-to-back possessions. He got a sack on 3rd down, and then I think every big defensive play pretty much started from him having an impact on the play.
Yeah, and you talk about James Pierce. I mean, last season it felt like they couldn't get off the field on 3rd down, and then today James Pierce in the first quarter, when your offense was not producing like they usually do, he gets back-to-back 3rd down sacks on back-to-back possessions to get them off the field. Yeah. Amari Thomas was in the backfield a ton today. I mean, Roman Harrison was shooting off the edge like crazy. And then you have your 2 linebackers, and Aaron Beasley and Keenan Peely. Keenan Peely kind of rotated in and out with Herring today, but Aaron Beasley was on the field almost the whole game. And you see those guys taking leadership. You see them being vocal. You see them leading that defense, like Josh Heupel and Tim Banks have told us, that they were going to do. So that's kind of stuff that you see transferring over from camp, and that's stuff we didn't see last year. Last year, I feel like if Tennessee had a game like today where the offense wasn't in it, I don't know if their defense can pull out a win like today.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's the improvement they've made. You see it in the development. You see it in the schemes. And there were some miscues today, which we'll talk about here with special teams, but that defense really, to me, was the standout thing today because Josh Heupel's known for his offense. He's known for winning football games with that explosive offense, and the defense stood up today. I mean, Virginia had 3 first downs, I think, in the first half, which is kind of crazy to think about. Like you said, Tony Muskett is his first time playing FBS football, but still, to do that to any team is a big feat. And kind of to wrap up here, I want to talk about some miscues, I guess, end on a lower note. But on special teams, it seemed like some things weren't going as well as Josh Heupel expected today. What did you see, Eric?
Yeah, it's hard because special teams, you don't realize the impact special teams has on a game. I mean, It comes as far as field position, and I think from those problems, I think Tennessee was really lucky that Virginia is under a new regime, second year head coach, and still trying to figure things out. But I mean, you had Jackson Ross, who he got a lot of hype this offseason, came from Australia, but football's a new game to him, and that's pretty much the big thing that it came down to. I know he had one 17-yard punt, another punt that went out of bounds also, that essentially set Virginia up in Tennessee territory, and most teams are going to take advantage of that. Fortunately for the Vols, Virginia didn't take advantage, but also you had Tommy or Josh Turbeville, if I have that name right. He kicked the ball. He kicked 2 balls out of bounds. That's something you just can't do on kickoffs. So I think the biggest thing that I need to see some improvement from is the special teams, because field position plays a really big part in college football.
Yeah, and I mean, General Nealon, one of his maxims was that it's won in the kicking game, lost in the kicking game. So, but yeah, like you said, I think Jackson Ross can grow in that category at punting. I mean, Josh Heupel talked about it today. That was his first time playing American football. Obviously, he played Australian football. Like, the crowd wasn't his problem, but this was his first time on a football field against a team not wearing orange. So, I mean, you expect growing pains. That it happens with freshmen, and it happens with him. I mean, this is his first game. Tuberville on the kickoffs, maybe that's a first game thing. I assume that'll be an emphasis in practice this week as well. And then you had D. Williams, who did a lot of special things in the return game, but he also fumbled a punt return. Now, I feel like for him, that's some stuff you can just chalk up to first game back on the field, because he also did break off some electric returns, and that's a guy who you need taking care of the football and ripping off those 30, 40-yard returns. So with all that being said, I feel like Tennessee answered a lot of questions today. I wrote that in my preview that they had find some answers to some questions. Got a big win, and you have Austin Peay next week, and then you go right into SEC play with Florida. So with all that being said, I'm Caleb Jarreau. That's Eric Woods, and we're the Daily Beacon sports editors here at Nissan Stadium.